even for the younger generation, like anyone watching or listening, they're in their 20s or 30s. I know the relationship rules, if you will, are very different than my generation, and the older generations. And those boundaries are very blurry already, because I know, like, people, it's like, are you going out, or are you hanging out, or just, Netflix and chill? I mean, all these weird definitions of quote unquote what a relationship is. I mean, long gone are the days from back in the 60s when, a man would call a girl's father and ask permission to even take her on a date for an ice cream and pick her up in a suit and tie, and they're officially dating. And the dances where people would ask people to dance, and then you're going steady, and all these relationship rules are now out the window. And honestly, I'm kind of out of the game a little bit, I'm not ashamed to say, but I know that the other different generations have different parameters when it comes to what a relationship is. So this is very interesting to me, because I know a lot of people listening and watching must be like, yeah, I got this one guy, but then I got this other guy, but this is the guy that's every couple months, and we stay in touch. And what really is a relationship? Like, what constitutes it? Someone like texting each other on Christmas, saying hello to the past lover? Or is it someone you actually physically see and you're in the same proximity? Someone you're actually sleeping with? Like, what are your thoughts on all these definitions of what is a relationship, and how do we make sense of it all?
That is a great question, because I think that every person probably has their own unique answer. But the key is that you have to actually know what your answer is.
And be happy with it. Like, be okay with whatever the answer is.
Yes. And I think one of the major issues, I guess we could call it, is that people will enter into a relationship or whatever it is without fully being clear themselves about what exactly they want, and then how they will create boundaries to make sure that that is what they're actually experiencing. So, as I'll use myself as an example, when I had started in that relationship, I did know what I wanted. I knew I wanted an exclusive relationship. I knew I wanted it to be supportive and loving and all these things. However, my boundaries weren't there. And so when I didn't feel supported in those ways, rather than just ending it for good and moving on, I played with the idea of the relationship, and I just kind of permitted it to go on for a very long time, because I was not honest with myself or the person about what was okay and not okay, and I did not draw the line. So unfortunately, people don't like to hear this, but relationships have so much more to do with you than they do the other person. And so one thing that's really challenging to kind of get real with yourself, but that's really necessary, is first of all, your self-honesty. You have to get so clear about what you want, why you want it, because sometimes the things that we want could be based from fears and insecurities. And so we want to make sure that we look at that, because if we're deciding what we want based on more negative emotions, then they might not actually be healthy choices. And so the more you can get to know yourself, understand yourself and why you want the things that you do, you can start to understand if you're making these choices from a place of balance and groundedness, or if they're more out of fears and insecurities. And for me, it was a place of insecurity. I was thinking, well, if I don't go along with this situation, then, he's not going to want me. In that moment, I should have thought, well, that's okay, because that's not what I want. But instead, my insecurities made the decisions for me. And so I think, getting back to your question, it's super important for people to identify clearly what they want and why, and what will they do to make sure that they are creating that situation. Because you create your relationship. You create your life. You create your life experiences to an extent. Of course, some things happen to us that are out of our control, but the way that you choose and respond to decisions, to things you're presented with, is going to dictate the path that your relationship in life takes. So you need to be clear. That's the first thing.